Welcome back, everyone, to Virginia Free Interviews the Candidates. Joining me now from his law offices is Eddie Whitlock, running for the Republican nomination in the June 13th primary against Ernesto Sampson to replace the current incumbent delegate, Jimmy Massie, who is not seeking re-election this year after, I think, 12 years in the General Assembly. Eddie, welcome to Virginia Free. Say hello and tell us why you're running for the House of Delegates.
Good morning, and thank you very much. Well, Chris, I'm running because my life has been about service and about leadership. Over the years, I've been serving my Commonwealth and my nation in many different ways. For the military, I spent 13 years in the Virginia Army National Guard, combat engineer officer, judge advocate general, attained the rank of captain, and was a combat engineer headquarters company commander. For my local community, I've been involved in several charities. I coached 50 soccer and baseball teams for the YMCA. I've been a PTO president, a local school board president, a diocesan school board president. I've been involved with my church as the leader of 3 building campaigns, as well as several other ministries. With my profession, I've been president of the Henrico County Bar Association, the Virginia Creditors Bar Association, and a volunteer with the Virginia State Bar and led several projects for them. And lastly, for my party, I've been everything from the door knocker, envelope stuffer, up to the current committee chairman. And over the last year, I've been able to bring together Republicans of all stripes and unify the committee and work together to win Henrico and try to turn Henrico red again. It's gone from red to purple to little bits of blue.
Well, that's a heck of a resume. I feel a little underutilized as a person. I've coached a few teams in my day, but not 50. And hats off to you for your community involvement and community service. But why are you running for the House of Delegates?
Well, I think I can take that same experience, that same servant leadership, and take to the General Assembly that experience and make a difference. You remember from a couple of years ago, Chris, I've got the Whitlock test, and I'm a financial hawk.
I was going to ask you about that.
Love the Whitlock test. Everybody loves the Whitlock test. I knock on doors every day, and I'm finding people that still remember the test. They love the test.
Well, it was a great. I don't want to call a slogan, but let's just back it up for folks. When you ran for the state senate, when Walter Stosh retired, in your was it a primary?
It was a primary. Yep.
You came up with this Whitlock test, and that was the standard by which you gauge things. And tell us what the Whitlock test is, and tell us what you think passes the current Whitlock test in the gubernatorial candidates, and what doesn't.
My gosh, Chris, that'll take hours. But the Whitlock test is.
Well, I'm sure as an attorney, you know how to be succinct.
Well, the test is succinct. Applying it is not so succinct. The test is succinct. First of all, I only would fund core functions of government. And second part of the test is it would have to be a core function of government that government can do better than private industry. And lastly, it would have to be something that is funded at the appropriate level, no excessive spending, and no annual reviews. It has to be proven every year. And there are a lot of things in Virginia that we budget, and there are certainly things I think that are not core functions of government.
Okay, let's run down the list of some of the things we've heard on the campaign trail from our gubernatorial candidates. Let's start out with Medicaid expansion. Where are you on Medicaid expansion?
No. Medicaid expansion is not a good thing for Virginia. The bottom line is the federal government wants us to take their dollars and then commit to future spending. When we do that, their one quote unquote free dollar turns into $2, turns into $4, turns into $6 or more in the years to come. You take a look at states like Oregon who've gone down that road, and they cannot financially sustain that. No state can. Beyond that, bottom line is I oppose it.
Okay, well, what if the federal government said, here, just take the money? No strings attached, flat out.
That's a nice idea, but I don't believe in unicorns.
You don't think that can happen?
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Okay, I know it's rather perspective and somewhat speculative to say, hey, what ifs and hypotheticals and that kind of stuff. But things are changing a lot in D.C. on the healthcare issue, and I think people are looking for solutions and solving the problems and working together. It's just my sense of what's going on out there.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and that's part of my resume, Chris, is by bringing together all parts of the party and working together. That's what I do every day as well for my business. I work with small businesses and help those small business owners achieve their dreams every day. And you only do that by putting deals together.
Right, right. K-12. What are your thoughts on K-12 education? How can we improve it in the Commonwealth? I think, in the district you're running for has a fairly strong K through 12 system in Henrico County, Western Henrico County. What would you do to improve the Commonwealth's K through 12 system?
I'm a strong proponent of school choice. I think Jimmy Massie was heading down the absolutely correct road in trying to expand school choice. He certainly was one of the founding members of tax credits and working through there. Through choice, we give the parents the opportunity to direct their own children's education. Through choice, we have competition, and with competition, we'll end up with a better product.
The constant refrain opposing the school choice is that you're taking otherwise monies available to public schools and giving it to people who frankly don't need it, or you're draining resources and students out of those schools. What do you say to that?
Well, that's their narrative. Of course, the truth never is a impediment for a good narrative for them. You were a big school court choice guy. I know that. I worked with you on panels over the years. And the bottom line is most of these educational institutions, for example, parochial schools, the cost for a parochial school in the city of Richmond is half of that of what it is for public education. If the funds followed the children, it would not be a drain on the economy for the city, for example. It would not be a drain for the economy of Henrico County. There would be less money spent. Parents would have a better choice. There would be a better product for the children, and there would be pressure on the local public schools to provide a better product as well.
Okay, let's move to higher education. A lot of concepts being floated, if you will, ideas that hard to say that there's a definitive policy out there because they're saying, oh, we want to make college free, community college free, affordability, accessibility, very difficult in today's day and age with tuitions at some private schools of $60,000-$70,000 a year. Even VCU over the weekends announced it was going to raise its tuition by almost 4% to it. Tell us your thoughts on affordability and accessibility in higher education.
Well, first of all, my Democratic opponent is a progressive, so he will be for free higher education. I certainly am not. Higher education is one of the solutions of making our country great and our Commonwealth strong and our economy strong. But so are community colleges, so are trade schools and other professional skills. We have great resources in our community colleges, and if we utilize those, we can bring down cost. Senator Walter Stosh was a big proponent of utilizing the first 2 years at community college and utilizing that as a gateway into higher other institutions. So I think that certainly is one very important step that we can take. Utilizing those resources we have at the community colleges for trades and other occupations. We're doing that in Henrico right now. I'm a member of the Henrico Economic Development Authority, and they've done an excellent job of partnering with trade schools and community colleges and local businesses and developing what they need. And when you develop that at a need, you also get funding from those private industries because they're invested in it. That will bring down the cost of education as well.
So if there were a proposal, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of hypotheticals again, the proposal has been to create free community colleges. Difficult in today's fiscal environment, but where do you stand on making community college free and affordable?
Well, free and affordable are two separate ideas, and it is a rabbit hole.
I guess I led with that one a little bit too much.
Well, I think the bottom line is nothing is free. We all know that. And if you're asking the taxpayers to pay for higher education for some of their citizens, I don't think that is a core function of government. Education certainly is, but providing free higher education is not. There are ways to cut waste. There are ways to partner with private industry like we're doing in Henrico, where we incentivize local businesses to invest in those community colleges, and that can bring down the cost, which helps the students.
Okay. Transportation, sort of a difference of opinions on the Republican side, your party. Senator Frank Wagner wants to raise the gas tax to fund roads. Gas is at historically low cost per gallon. Other candidates are opposed to that and want to cut taxes. Where do you stand on that in light of Standard & Poor's recent announcement there, watching our fiscal situation and concerns about our bond rating?
I will always come down on the side of cutting taxes. Reaganomics is what I grew up with. Reaganomics is what I believe in. We mentioned Henrico County's Economic Development Authority and Henrico County's efforts a few moments ago. You know, Henrico County recently raised the level, doubled the level for the B-poll tax, which is providing great relief for Henrico businesses. We also provided for tax deductions breaks for businesses, specifically in regard to data storage, electronic, which has provided, you know, an incentive for them to bring in more jobs. Those types of things create jobs. Those types of things grow our economy. Over the past 4 years under this governor, and certainly the Democratic governors before, our ratings have gone down, and they go down because our taxes are up and our quality of living therefore goes down. So I'm always going to be on the side of cutting taxes, growing the economy that way.
Oftentimes, though,
No to the raising the tax on the gas. I apologize. I didn't directly answer that.
No, that's fine. I was going to get back to that because oftentimes, as you know, in your time and all the work you've done in politics and in your community service, it's one thing to have a thought and idea. It's another thing to try to collaborate and get the ideas and the deals done. And if it comes across, again, hypothetically speaking, though, when you got a budget deal in front of you, and there's a gas tax proposed from the Senate or from where Senator Frank Wagner is, or his colleagues, and says, "Look, this is how we're going to fund transportation." I guess what it comes down to, and a lot of times when it's funding transportation, is where do you see that as a core function of government, and how should it be financed? Tolls, taxes, a combination of the above? What?
Well, infrastructure is certainly a key and a core function of state government, no doubt about that. And, you know, I'm going to have to weigh out two different levels of responsibility. For my House District 72, we've got great roads. We don't have tolls. And so raising taxes on local citizens in my district to do something in Northern Virginia or Tidewater is going to be a hard sell to me. On the other hand, we do have a statewide plan that we've got to implement. So I get that. I'll go back to the bottom line, Chris, and understand as a freshman legislator, I understand my power is going to be very little. My influence is going to be very little. But the Whitlock test can help transform the way we think about budgets in Virginia. We have a spending problem. Coming to me and saying we need to raise taxes in certain areas to afford to build roads without addressing our spending problem to begin with, which would free up other funds to do those roads, I'd have a hard time with that.
I'm not going to assume that you support the constitutional amendment to put a lockbox on transportation funding. If that were to pass, would you be more amenable to raising the gas tax and other fees to fund transportation? Because all the money would then go to transportation.
Yeah, I apologize. I am not familiar with that provision. I'd have to look at it.
Okay, most recently passed the legislature. No, it passed the legislature this year, and it'll be up in I think if you are elected, that'll be one of the key votes coming up for you next year.
The second vote. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. Speaking of infrastructure, two important projects that have been on the books for a while in process. The federal level, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, the Mountain Valley Pipeline, very controversial. And brings in together all the economic growth aspects, reducing emissions, and it also brings in the areas of property rights and eminent domain. Where do you fall on those important infrastructure projects for the Commonwealth?
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned the second part because that is important to me. Sometimes people only talk about the energy part, not about the property rights. Look, for energy, I am in all of the above. I'm in favor of all energy sources and all options, as long as we're doing it responsibly, then I'm there. So that includes the pipelines, that includes offshore drilling, that includes everything. Now, as you mentioned, yeah, you need to make sure that we properly protect people's private property rights, that we're only doing a taking that is required, and that we're doing it at the minimum level necessary to accomplish the legitimate purpose of the government. So as long as we're doing that, I'm going to support it.
Okay, we're Where do you stand on drawing those lines in the Whitlock test? Because those aren't really fiscal issues, and conservatism has often been, cast as being anti-environment, just letting business run roughshod. And I was having a conversation over the weekend with a friend of mine who regularly goes out in the bay, and he sees a lot of the improvements to the bay and its cleanup. Where are you on environmental issues, and where can people expect the Whitlock test to be applied in the balance between economic growth and environmental protection?
Sure. Reasonableness. The bottom line is the Whitlock test is economics, but in other parts of conservatism, reasonableness is where we go. We have to be good stewards of our property, and I will advocate that. But I think that there are times when we have some who argue for levels of protection, which I think are extreme and unnecessary for the sake of ideology. And certainly I will not support that. But if there is a legitimate concern for the environment being raised, I'm going to explore that. I want my Commonwealth to be passed down to my children and grandchildren in the same or a better condition than I see it now.
On healthcare, are you hearing anything door to door as you go around? You said before we went on here that your campaign is closing in on 7,000 doors, and trust me, I know that's a lot of doors. But are you able to have
I had to buy new shoes?
So did I. So did I back in the day. And you're getting it done before the heats of summer's coming along, so you got to go back and double down on that if you win. Are your constituents saying anything on healthcare?
Yeah, very much so.
I say your constituents, the people to whom you are seeking to be their representatives, so they be your constituents. I want them.
Yes, they are very much opposed to Medicaid expansion, and
really?
The concern. Yeah, I mean it's been 90% or more of the people. Of course, I'm trying to knock doors only on identified likely Republican primary voters, so my pool is a limited pool. But sometimes somebody gets in the pool that shouldn't be there. But no, I mean it's a very clear anti-expansion program and concern, because most of the people who I've talked to recognized our healthcare system for what we had, which was the best healthcare system in the world, and we gave it away. We're heading down a European socialism track that we don't want to be heading down. Do we need to tighten things up? Do we need to improve? Absolutely. But my constituents, my future constituents, are not pleased with the results of Obamacare, and they are urging our Republicans to find good solutions to tighten that up.
What do you think the base of the Republican Party is willing to do on health care? As you know, so often in politics, it's not what you want, it's what you're willing to give up to get things done. And yeah, you're fighting for the Republican nomination. The Democrats I interview are fighting for their nomination as well. And I don't think you get out on the edge so much as reflect the views of the people you're trying to have vote for you. So where do you think Republican primary voters are this many months into the Trump administration, looking out, healthcare bill goes down, healthcare bill resurrected and pushed back out, and all these town halls that are going on? It's a charged up atmosphere out there.
I think the vast majority of the Republican voters I've spoken with are happy that something is happening. They were happy that the House made a move. But frankly, I think most voters are not sure what the plan provides for and what changes still need to be made. They know they're not happy.
Right. And look, I don't think 99% of your constituents understand a word in the new bill. I mean, they really don't know. They just know there's progress going. This bill passed. Is that fair?
Right. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the problems in translating that for folks in the political world and the business world is they want to see some progress, but they don't even know what's going on in the progress. Because, the last time this happened, no one read the bill, relatively speaking, and they jammed this thing through, and look what happened. It wasn't embraced. And it has been suggested that, especially by Mark Rubin, who is, I guess, the consigliere of the arbitrators in Richmond. He works at the Conflict Resolution Center. I think it's called Conflict Resolution Center, VCU. And what he does is he brings people to the negotiating table and works through a very long process of getting people to negotiate around certain very difficult issues. And I talked to him one night and I said, is the Virginia way of governing really an incremental approach to making change? He goes, absolutely. That way you have buying. That's a difficult sell in today's political climate.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Chris, you broke up a little bit, but if I think I understand what you finished with, you're saying is that a difficult sell that Virginia's incremental changes is the way we do business?
Yeah, Virginia move slowly in certain directions, but it does so by consensus. We used to call it in the legislature peace in the valley. We had two sides opposed to one another, and then it was this incremental approach to making change that everyone bought in, and then what was absorbable into current operations of business or government. Is that a fair characterization?
Well, I think it very much is. And of course, you were up in the valley at that time, if I remember correctly. So you liked peace in the valley. Yeah, I
well
think
played.
it is.
Well played, Eddie.
But they do things differently in D.C. And, you know, that the tenor has gone so harsh and sour and the divisive and the fight is so bad that certainly I think Virginians look up and say, you know, we like it when we can work together. We don't like what we're seeing in Washington. And thank God in Virginia, we still have a part-time legislature, and we have legislators who go for the limited period of time and have to go back to work in their own businesses and live under the taxes and the regulations they've created. So I think the environment of Virginia is much better. And some problems are not quick fixes and not easy fixes. You know, the medical healthcare system is certainly not one of those quick fixes. And thank God that's a federal issue for the most part.
Yeah. So oftentimes in politics today, and I don't want to get too esoteric in our conversation, but it is illustrative for people who are watching this, is to understand that the people in D.C. see what's going on in Virginia because we're a bellwether battleground state. And if we can, show that we can work together across party lines, and that's politically popular, that tends to carry the day. I mean, that tends to, go upstream, if you will. Back when I was elected in 2001, very different time, was right after 9/11. The nation was unified and working together, and the banner was who could be the most bipartisan. And that's just, it was trying to out bipartisan the other guy. Now, that's not it. This is a very different time, and we're going down a very difficult road where it's just nothing can get done in D.C. And I think with Virginia being ahead of all the other states, at least electorally on the calendar and the cycle, if that were more popular, would that translate upstream and therefore and pardon me in my long question to you, is that the responsibility of the General Assembly, or is it not?
It's not. I don't think it's a primary responsibility. I think the primary responsibility of the General Assembly is to create the laws and take care of the Commonwealth. Certainly, the Commonwealth is helped by having better laws done in Washington. So the extent that we in Richmond can help those in Washington get their act together, that'd be a very good thing. I think pendulums swing back and forth. You were elected, as you say, at a time when the pendulum was way far to the bipartisan time. Recently, pendulum is to the point of fight on everything. I think most reasonable people realize that the path we're going down in D.C., fighting over everything, is not getting us anywhere. We're going to have to find a way to bring reasonable people together who can put deals together, who can talk civilly with each other, and get a good deal. It's not going to be what everyone wants, but as a lawyer, when you go into court, if both sides are unhappy, then maybe you got the right result.
Yeah. Well, oftentimes I would be in the legislature working on issues, and I'd go to a member of either party and make my pitch, and they go, "I agree with you. I see what you're trying to do. I just can't sell it back home." And one of the difficult things we have in politics today is going back to the base of our parties and saying, "Hey, here's what we can do and get done," and actually being able to sell it, because they don't want to have that thing. They think it's losing more ground either way, and it's breaking through that. It's a very difficult proposition. And as you say, at the federal level, because we are so tied to the federal government with Defense Department spending, federal employees. I mean, when they get a sniffle, we get the flu, and the sequestration shows that and how it has a budgetary impact. So, what would you tell the business community that you think you can reasonably get done on these core issues that you're willing to transgress, if you will, certain areas where you might not be otherwise willing to go?
Let me step back a second and tie some other things right into that answer. Chris, that's why you have to have a relationship with the core groups of your constituency that you represent, and developing over the course of time that relationship where people trust you. As committee chairman in Henrico, people trust me from all parts of the party because I've worked with them. And so if I go to them and I say, look, these are the issues. I know this isn't all of what we want. We're going to have to give up this to get that. They trust me. And you cannot replace relationships of time, of trust, any other way than to work with people. And so that is one of the things that I bring to this race, that credibility, that ability to work with people, in a history of all groups understanding that I can put deals together. When it comes to working with businesses and citizens, I have that same discussion. I have that same honest discussion with people. We sit down, we take a look at the issues and say, this is where we are. This is where we want to go. These are the different approaches that we have. This is going to work best for us, and get a buy-in.
Is the key to that? And that's me personally, that's a strong answer. And one of the things is how often candidates get boxed in, especially in the nomination method. And frankly, this is why Virginia Free is weighing into these candidates, the nomination for the candidates, because this is where, frankly, people make, I guess, some difficult policy positions to walk back from when they say, this is what I'm going to do, dun, da, 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 and you go, okay, and you get elected, and then they can't do it. And then it's these, betrayal, and people are outraged because you said you were going to do, sticking to your word. Is that a difficult process these days to lay out a concrete policy proposals and say, I'm going to do this and nothing more to get the votes? It's the Whitlock test. Where does that come into play? I guess politically at the nomination level, so you can protect yourself in the future when you have to make those deals.
I think that is a huge problem for someone who doesn't have a long history and a working relationship with the members of their party. Absolutely. I think it is, because if you're going into a primary being elected by one wing or one group under one certain policy, then you are destined to have trouble down the road. The base that I have is pretty amazing, Chris. My district, we had former Congressman Eric Cantor, who was out, who was beaten in the primary by Dave Bratt. A lot of hard feelings. We had other fractions of the Henrico party. We had Tea Party members. We have other conservative groups. I am endorsed by all the local elected officials at this point who are endorsing. I am supported by the leaders of the Tea Party. I am supported by members of all wings of the party. I put that together, and because of that coalition, I can work with everyone, and I've got some credibility going down the road. If I didn't have that, you're absolutely right. It would be challenging after the first session. I'd have to come back and have to worry about explaining each and every position. But because I have those relationships built, I can have conversations during the session with people and letting them know where things are going.
Well, that's good to hear, Eddie. And we wish you the best. We don't endorse, and we wish everyone the best, because running for public office is a very difficult task. And we wish everyone good luck. And regardless of the outcome, we hope the candidates who are running all stay engaged. Any final thoughts for our audience as we sign off? I know you've got to get to court.
Sure. I think I've pitched my case pretty hard, but as I mentioned a second ago, you will find that everyone from Congressman Bliley to the Tea Party leaders in my area that are endorsing have endorsed. And in the next couple of days, you're going to hear some other pretty big names.
Well, that's interesting. What's your expectation on turnout?
It's hard model because we haven't had a primary since Jimmy was elected 10 years ago. So our best guess is, trying to figure in with the statewide races, about 8,500. about 8,500 is our best guess.
And I assume your goal is 4,251.
No, my goal is a lot higher than that.
Okay. Thanks, Eddie.
I subscribe to Ronald Reagan's theory in so many ways. 80-20 is a good number.
That's a fair. Well, we wish the Whitlock test the very best as you test it out in the marketplace of politics and the nominations for the Republican primary on June 13th in House District 72. Eddie Whitlock, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Have a great day, everyone.
You do the same.